We should have gone broke about 3 times. So anybody out there that is in the grind building, just understand we've all been there. There's just glass ceiling after glass ceiling that you have to break. But I will tell you what has afforded us the ability to be successful is because we spent a lot of time focusing on hiring people better and smarter than us. So I can tell you right now, Ava, when I'm in a meeting, if I'm the smartest person in that room, I haven't done my job.
Welcome to the Freight People Podcast, where we have honest conversations about succeeding in trucking and logistics. Today, we're sitting down with one of my favorites, Adam Blanchard. He's the CEO of Tanager Logistics and Double Diamond Transport. Between the two, Adam is running a $65 million a year operation, balancing the grind of asset management and also freight brokerage strategy. But my favorite thing, Adam is not just running freight. He is shaping policy. As some of you guys may have seen on his LinkedIn, he testified recently before the United States Congress about the spike in cargo theft, urging a stronger federal response. And he serves as an officer with the Truckload Carriers Association, so often speaks up for carriers nationwide. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Ava. It's good to see you today.
Always great to see you. And today we're going to be talking about how you built this awesome logistics company and what it really takes to scale both an asset side and a brokerage, and the freight fraud problem that nobody can ignore. Also, which tech is helping you out these days? And if we have time, I'd love to also talk about your thoughts on consolidation that we're seeing in the industry, nearshore teams, and even where the freight market may be headed. So to kick things off, can you give us the summary version of how you started Tanager and Double Diamond?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, kind of back up to begin with, I was actually an attorney before I started our trucking company. And so I practiced law for about 4 or 5 years and then met a really good friend of mine in Lubbock, Texas that worked for a trucking company. And at the time I was ready to get out of the practice of law. Really wasn't for me as a 3rd generation attorney. And so we made the decision, actually at a sports bar one night, that we were going to start a trucking company. And so we put our first truck on the road July 1st of 2014. About 3 months later, we started our freight brokerage. And kind of from then, we've grown the team. We run about 85 to 100 trucks, predominantly owner-operator based, which is Double Diamond Transport. About 285 dry van trailers. We do a lot of drop and hook in the state of Texas. And then Tanager Logistics, after we really got Double Diamond off the ground, we decided to pivot to focus more on the brokerage. So really our strategy was, let's get our feet underneath us as a trucking company, because we felt like having the asset side of your business was very important to kind of the foundation of who we wanted to be as a logistics company. But then started Tanager. We've got about 15 to 20 brokers, I think, at this point. And in fact, Tanager Logistics is our larger company, but having the asset side's a huge benefit to us with our customer relationships and our overall vision and what we're looking to accomplish in the logistics industry.
Awesome. Okay, so having that asset side really helped your brokerage side. And I'd love to hear if you've got some other tips and tricks for how you scaled the whole logistics company and especially the brokerage.
It's hard. We should have gone broke about 3 times. So anybody out there that is in the grind building, just understand we've all been there. We've gone through our trials and tribulations. And look, each time you step up, it seems harder and insurmountable. There's just glass ceiling after glass ceiling that you have to break. But once you get to about 25 trucks, you kind of hit that point. Then you've got to scale to about 50. Then you get to 75, and then from 75 and up, it's a different game. But I will tell you what has afforded us the ability to be successful is because we spent a lot of time focusing on hiring people better and smarter than us around us. So I can tell you right now, Ava, when I'm in a meeting, if I'm the smartest person in that room, I haven't done my job. And so that was hugely important to us. We also built out a good compensation system on our brokerage side to where our brokers are actually commission only, but they have the ability and really an unlimited upward ability to earn. And in fact, every year we've had our companies, there's been salespeople that have made more than me. But I love that because when they have that financial incentive, it certainly translates into higher productivity and a higher quality of person that's working with us. And so those were the 2 main things I would say. I focus a lot on the back end accounting side. I will say focus a lot on making sure you have the right technologies. There's a lot of consolidation now that I know you want to get into later, and we can talk through that. But really spending the time to get the foundational pieces like your transportation management softwares, your EFSs, your maintenance softwares. You need to have all of the softwares really dialed in early. We invested early on in our company, even beyond what we could afford at the time in order to accomplish that. And I think that was a good foresight on our part and really allowed us to grow. Because when you get to scale, you're not having to re-implement a new software. That is the hardest thing to do. It's really easy to implement a software when you're smaller. I would focus on one that is scalable as you get going up to about 150 trucks on the asset side, I would say, because once you get to that point, it's, I'm sure, a different game. But those are the two things that I think have really benefited us over the years.
Awesome. Yeah. So a smart tech stack that can scale with you. And I would add to that a modern framework, because technology is evolving so quickly that we've got to have tech and logistics that is evolving with it. And I'd love to get to that in a second. Just like, what is your tech stack? What are some technologies you use that you think are exceptional? Because I think that's really helpful to other people in the industry. But you mentioned hiring smart people and also a commission structure that can be super motivating to your brokers. I'm wondering if you have any insight on hiring. Like, how do you find these really smart people?
We've been fortunate over the years, Ava, that I think to begin with, and really generally speaking, it was mostly referral based. I mean, we knew people because we had people from the very beginning that had been in the industry. And so we went out and identified some of those great people we knew and hired them. That's where we really started. And the thing about A-team players is they usually hang with A-team players. And so when you start bringing on A-team players, they usually know other A-team players in the industry that they will make recommendations to you to hire when that position becomes available or that need comes to light within the company. So really what we have done predominantly is referral based. Now, we have also utilized LinkedIn. We find that to probably be the best place to recruit. And we utilize a software called Culture Index, which is a kind of a personality assessment, but it's not real in depth. It takes maybe 5-10 minutes. We require it before any interview. And that was transformative to our company because it allows you to take your intuition in hiring and then back it up with data. So you're making sure you're putting the right people in the right seats. And it also helps us a lot with management because it gives you some insight on how best to manage people. And so I think that piece of technology that was recommended to me by a few buddies in town that own companies was really huge to us. So any of your listeners out there, I would highly recommend they look into it. They can reach out to me. I can give them a contact, but that was an absolute game changer for us.
Cool. Culture Index, which is like a personality assessment. Are there any that you remember off the top of your head that works well for like dispatchers or brokers?
Yeah. So when you take the test, you have to get trained on it. So I could go in, I could screen share, which I know we can't do it on a podcast, but it wouldn't make sense to you. But essentially there's 4 factors, right? Like how driven are you and how, your leadership qualities, your pace, whether you're introverted or extroverted, and how detail oriented you are. And then it also gives you on this chart, how creative you are and then how analytical you are. And so, dispatchers have a certain quality, certainly higher attention to detail, faster pace. They need to be somewhat outgoing in order to communicate with drivers, but you also don't need all of them to be chiefs, right? And so you kind of fit in that mix of what you're analyzing from what you've learned from this test, which like I said, it only takes about 7 to 10 minutes to do. All you do is pick words that describe you. So you can't really cheat the test. And once you get it, you're like, okay, this is a good person for this seat. This is a good person for this seat. And you start kind of figuring out the mix. But I mean, it's pretty evident when you see from those results, like this is a salesperson. You don't want to put somebody that's really more operational focused, high attention to detail. Their cup isn't filled by being outgoing, right? You want those people in sales and you need the other support behind them. So it's a great test. You can look it up online and it's not that expensive. It's unlimited test for, flat fee a year, I think.
Sweet. Okay. So that's called Culture Index. I think that's a fabulous tip right out of the gate. I actually studied Myers-Briggs a lot. I'm certified Myers-Briggs technician. So I totally relate to, if you can find what motivates people and the way that they're intrinsically made, if you find the position where they're going to be happy, they're going to do such a better job, so much of a better job. So I totally, second that. I think that's wise.
It's not absolute, right? I tell people all the time, they take this test and they're freaked out like, oh my gosh, is this a make or break? It's like, no, people can flex up and accomplish things that aren't their natural tendencies, right? But it is exhausting. It's mentally taxing to have to flex up to be attentive to detail when that's not your natural strength. So that's really where it comes in to help, saying, okay, let's put them in this position so that they're playing to their natural strengths. That's what has been so helpful to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then they'll stay there much longer. They won't get burnt out as easily, and they'll do a better job for sure. Okay. So you already have mentioned a tech tool that's helping you, but I know there's a lot of noise in freight tech, and I'm just wondering which tools are actually making a real difference for you guys.
Technology being exhausting is an understatement, Ava. So, since the 2018 ELD mandate, right, like we've been inundated in the industry and we've seen a lot of turnover within technologies, right? And so I think what we're seeing now and what I'm hearing from my team is they want to see all of the things they're wanting to do in one pane of glass, right? Like in our safety department, for instance, they were having to log into 3 different systems. They're getting to the point now with the evolution of technology in our industry to where we can have something that's all encompassing. And so that's really what we're focused on now. And then making sure that the companies that we're getting connected to are in it for the long term, because you're seeing some of the older legacy platforms aren't innovating anymore. They're on-prem server based. And that's a problem because it inhibits your mobility of your workforce, which is now a big thing after COVID, right? And so cloud-based systems are obviously the most important. I have told people without a doubt that your number one software you got to focus on is your TMS, because that's the hub. That's the only piece of software that everybody in the company touches. So we're a client of Alvys, and I think very forward leading in the industry, and we can get into more of Alvys, but it's been great. It's very intuitive. It helps with our training time. I think it's very helpful to make sure that it's not something that takes extensive amount of training, but that's a huge one for us. We also recently changed our ERP system, our accounting system, to Microsoft Dynamics. It's a robust, it's similar to a NetSuite. It's Microsoft's competitor to NetSuite. Big, robust platform. You need it when you get bigger and get to scale. But earlier on, QuickBooks, I would say, is probably the best one to use early on. And then Samsara, I think, is a fantastic ELD provider. They've got great API connections. They integrate well with everybody. Those are really the main ones. There's a lot of transformation right now on the safety side of things. We used Driver Reach for many years. They were a great software. They just got bought by 10 Street. So you're seeing 10 Street kind of take over the game right now, candidly. The one problem I have is they don't connect to one of our other providers, but very robust platform. So we're just seeing a lot of our softwares kind of be consolidated. Where, everybody in each department's really working within one, which is very nice.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So those are some great recommendations. You guys we're using QuickBooks, and as you have gotten bigger, you're now using Microsoft Dynamics, and you also like Samsara, Alvys TMS, and 10 Street. It sounds like you're pretty happy with.
Yeah, we're new to 10 Street, so I will withhold my recommendation, but they're certainly all encompassing. And look, they're a big player in the industry, and they're very involved in the industry. And so without a doubt, they're going to be a player that's here to stay for a while. I hope they continue to innovate, and I'm interested to see, how their platform works. But I will say, as we've started looking at things like our CRM is Microsoft based, a lot of these softwares don't play nice in the sandbox with others, right? That, at least with the big boys, right? I mean, Alvys and others will do a good job of integrating with whoever you need to, but living within the Microsoft ecosystem was very much a strategic decision we made, because now the CRM connects easily with your Outlook. CRM connects easily with our accounting, which is also Microsoft. I would be thoughtful about, if you have several needs, having those all within one kind of technology does help, because they integrate much better.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay. And Microsoft's got a good suite. Are you experimenting with AI at all? And is that on the horizon for you guys?
Well, I don't think you can tell anybody that's a customer that you're not looking at AI, right? It's the hot new thing. I did have a pretty extensive conversation with a large customer of ours recently, though. And I said, my opinion is this, Ava. Are we starting to work with it? Yes. And I'll kind of get into some of the things we are, but I am still very much of the opinion, at least in this industry, for now, it's going to require people. I mean, what we're looking at AI to do, which is what I think AI really is at this point, is just advanced automation. And so we are utilizing AI for process improvement and time savings for our employees, but I don't see it eliminating employees anytime soon, especially at your kind of middle ranks to upper ranks. Are there people at the bottom that are doing, basic tasks like order entry and things like that probably will be at risk in the future? Probably so, but we're utilizing an AI platform right now, and it's good, it's helping, but when you're only at like an 85% success rate on any kind of automation, well, that doesn't work for you, because if it's got to be at about 80, 98, 99%, if not, you still have to have the people reviewing it all. If you're not careful, it'll actually cost you more time, having to review it, and there's a likelihood of even more mistakes. And so we're working with it. We're going to continue to look into it, but I just don't see it being completely transformative. If it was, and we could just automate this whole industry, the two large platforms out there that were app-based, the Ubers and the Convoys, they would have taken over already, right? I mean, this is a people business that has problems that require people to get involved and communicate to fix. And so I would just look at it in terms of automation, but I'm not seeing it really being hugely transformative. But it's going to consume a lot of data. I think rate analysis, bidding, I think it's going to cause the industry to, could compress rates a little bit more the more advanced that analysis is on lanes. I think it's going to cause people to have to be more sophisticated in their pricing, certainly. And so you want to be ahead of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It's very hard to substitute real people right now. One of the tools that I've seen that works well using AI in freight tech is to just interpret a document, any document, whether it's a screenshot, or any kind of spreadsheet, and the AI can tell what information needs to go where in terms of creating a load. So that's something Alvys is using AI for. And so exactly what you're saying, like to use it for automation more than a human substitute, like doing your outbound calling or your customer service. Yeah, it's a very different application.
Yeah, like PowerPoint's probably going away, right? Like there's not going to be many people that are like PowerPoint experts anymore, right? Like AI is going to solve that. And, the need for the additional training we do in our accounting and finance team for advanced Excel classes that we require everybody to take, right? To your point, AI will help with that, right? It's kind of like coding. I've talked to a lot of people I'm not in the software space, but it's not writing code, but it's validating it is what I understand. And so I think you're going to see more of that, which is really just process improvement and making people's time more efficient. And so I think it's going to be deflationary in a sense. I think you're going to be able to do the same amount of work with fewer people, which is a good thing, but I don't see it as a replacement until the generative side of it just takes over, which with technology, Ava, who knows? I mean, we're going to stay ahead of it, but at the end of the day, people still want to call people, and there's more criminal kind of activity due to this too now. And I'm kind of curious if we're going to get back to a stage down the road. People may think I'm crazy of actually needing to have face-to-face interactions, because now that can replicate my voice or your voice. I mean, the things it can do is pretty crazy. It's part of the freight fraud stuff we can talk about in a little bit, but I think it could get back to a point where you're having more face-to-face calls so you can validate that you are talking to the person with whom you wanted to talk to, right? And so who knows how it's going to go, but I think we all need to be ahead of it. And know Alvys is certainly looking into it, which we appreciate. And y'all are already automating some of the things within the software, which is great. So I think as long as whoever you're working with is focused on it, that's the main thing you can do.
Absolutely. And just stay on top of how quickly it's learning and evolving. Yeah. So freight fraud, it's still a big issue. And I'm wondering how you've been affected by it and sort of your story that got you more involved in trying to change policy in this country.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to testify in front of Congress, as you mentioned earlier, which was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It was neat. I've testified in front of the Texas state legislature for many years on tort reform. I've worked on that. If you operate in Texas or know anything about the litigation environment in Texas, it's a nightmare. So we've worked on that, but I've never been up to Washington and testified in front of Congress. Very formal, neat experience, pretty terrified, but you got a shot clock in front of you with a mic in your face, with people, cameras in your face. And I'm not as natural as you are at this, Ava. So it was very distracting, and I had to read off a script, which I hate doing. I'm more of a bullet point guy. But, I was telling the ATA team up there, I'm appreciative of the opportunity to be up here, but it's really too bad that I'm here. I wish I wasn't here, because to be here is to say that I've gone through all of these crazy things that I went there to testify about. And so any of your listeners that want to get into the specific details, you can get on my LinkedIn, and I've got a video of it on there. And it was really interesting because the panel, there was 4 of us, and it was the railroads, they were represented. It was the retailers, which is simply our customers, the shippers, me, and then the guy from OIDA. So very seldom are all 4 of those organizations aligned on policy issues related to transportation, right? Either competitors with rail, retailers in OIDA, especially, is a fleet of mostly owner operators. So that what I thought was neat. But, ultimately we've gone through a lot of things. We had our identity stolen. We are actually going through a straight theft situation right now where driver for a company just stole a load. I think they didn't do their research because it was a bunch of packaged, pre-made, like potatoes or something. I mean, it was a worthless product, I think, to steal. But it's getting worse and worse, and the size and sophistication of these organizations is incredible. And they're spoofing our emails. They've hacked our data account. We've had our FMCSA account hacked. I mean, there was another Tanager Logistics on the FMCSA website, and they're not in the U.S. I mean, we got them on the phone one time. These are people from Eastern Europe, a lot of people from Africa, from what we can tell, and so they're outside the country. Generally, at least the masterminds of these people that are doing things other than freight theft, like straight theft. And so it's hard to get to them. So we were testifying there, asking Congress to, well, at the time they hadn't even filed the bill, but they have now, which would create a dedicated federal law enforcement task force that would specifically focus on investigating and prosecuting these crimes. Because currently, they're just not investigating them, because to get to the federal level for them to actually investigate, the value of the theft has to meet or exceed $1.5 million. Well, when the average cargo theft, the value is around $200,000, you're only going to get to that mark if you have continued to investigate them as an ongoing criminal enterprise, which you're not going to do because it's circular, because they won't start from the beginning. And so when they're going unchecked, then they're going to continue to act with impunity, which is what's happening. And so we're very optimistic with ATA, TIA's involved with it too. All of our industry associations in Washington are focused on pushing this legislation, but it's got to get handled, Ava, because I just did my insurance renewal and I am now getting killed on my cargo insurance. And that was never a problem in the past. I mean, auto liability has always been an issue, right? Due to the litigation environment in the US, but cargo is now becoming a major cost center for us on the insurance side. And so, it's a multi-billion-dollar theft enterprise that's going on right now. And so we've got to get our arms around it. And I was afraid my customers were going to look poorly at me for telling people about these things, but it was actually the opposite. They called and thanked me for speaking up. So that was reassuring, because I was afraid some of my sales executives were going to get mad at me because I was talking about some of their, customers and things that had happened with them. But look, I think we've got to speak up and fight together. And having a background as an attorney and also being an executive in the industry, it just gives me a unique ability to go testify. And so I'm happy to pay that forward, and we'll keep fighting the good fight. And I'd encourage any of your listeners out there to do the same. And FMCSA does now have a database. So if you've gone through it, reach out to the FMCSA. I don't know that they're doing anything about it, but they're at least tracking it. So if you're going through it, let them know. And then our insurance company, as Travelers, has a new criminal investigation division. They're doing an incredible job. In fact, I think the guy that stole this last load, they found him and he just got indicted in New Jersey or something. And so if you're renewing your insurance, I would ask on the cargo side, does that insurance carrier have an investigation unit for cargo theft? Because if they don't, you're just going to start getting hit with these payouts on these claims, and they're going to annihilate you on your renewals with, increased cost of your premium. So I hope that was enough. That's a lot to unpack, Ava. Sorry, I could talk to you about this for days, but we're in the middle of it. And, we're starting to see, some advancement there. We're very hopeful this bill gets passed, because once the federal government gets involved, the FBI, they have a long reach internationally too. And so I'm very optimistic, assuming we continue to press Congress to do it and it doesn't get too mucked up there with other nonsensical politics stuff. But if we can get it advanced, then you start prosecuting them. And once you start prosecuting people, especially at the federal level, you'll start turning heads. And that's the best deterrent, is got to prosecute them. So people need to go to prison. They need to know that there's somebody out there looking, because only the FBI has the sophistication to do the reverse IP searches and break through these VPNs that they're using, and, their VoIP phones that they're using, like getting through to where the ultimate source of that is. Also with our spoofing our emails, like my IT director is very sophisticated, but we only have so many resources at our disposal to backtrack where these people are. And so you've got to have federal law enforcement with those tools to be able to do that.
Okay, so there is a bill that you're hoping will pass where the federal government will get involved, the FBI, and be able to prosecute these criminals and actually punish them for all the theft that's going on. And you're optimistic that it will get passed?
It's been filed. We were very thankful. Senator Ted Cruz, who's the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, which is where this went through, he actually is authoring the bill on the Senate side with a bipartisan group of U.S. senators. So that's a very good sign. When you have a chairman of a very important committee, the U.S. Commerce Committee, they oversee through a subcommittee of theirs, the FMCSA, and really our industry and transportation. So yeah, we're seeing some movement there. I need to follow up with ATA and find out exactly where we are. I think the only problem we're having right now is there's a few U.S. representatives that are budget hawks, and there's going to be a fiscal note attached. You got to pay these people to go investigate, especially if it's dedicated to us. So I think we're trying to break through and make sure that the cost of this isn't going to be inhibitive of getting some votes in the House of Representatives. But it's moving, and I think in a very positive way because it's bipartisan. I think we're going to get votes on both sides of the aisle. I don't foresee this as an issue that's purely partisan, where no Democrats or no Republicans are going to go vote for it. I think you're going to see people cross the aisle on an issue like this, a policy like this, which makes it much more likely to get passed. And I will say President Trump has really done a great job for our industry. I mean, he's listening to us. I know he talks to the ATA quite a bit. I mean, look at what he's done on the emissions side of things. I mean, he's focusing on our industry, so I don't think it's going to be lost on him either. Anyway, Hope springs eternal, Ava, but I think we're making good progress.
That is great news. I hope that passes. And then you mentioned the FMCSA now has a list of, yeah,
they've got what they are doing now is they have a group of people at the FMCSA that are now tracking these issues, right? So before we originally had called on an issue, they're like, there's nothing we can do. That's not really within our purview. Why that was the case is beyond me, Ava, but be that as it may, they have now created a division within the FMCSA that is collecting information on these cargo thefts. I think that's important to us because once we begin to get a federal law enforcement task force together, then we're going to have some substantive information, a repository of data from individuals this happened to and basic information that will allow them to go prosecute. And so I think it's a good first step. It is not going to fix anything right now, but I think if we can start tracking trends, it's going to help law enforcement down the road. It also helps us when we're presenting information to Congress, asking them to change things or enact legislation that benefits us. So it's not going to be lost on us if you take the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any last tips for carriers or brokers that they could implement to try to protect themselves?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you have to use some kind of a carrier vetting platform on the brokerage side. We personally use RMIS. We've used it for years. I know Highways come out, looks like a pretty impressive platform, but you have to use that. I mean, if you're not using that, you're just asking for trouble. So that's the first thing. You got to make sure it integrates with your TMS. And if they don't qualify, then they can't be used or have loads brokered to that carrier within your TMS, which Alvys does. And most of them do, which is a good thing, but you got to do that first. We also, if we haven't used a carrier before, we will actually, before we tender them the load, we'll get on the Safer website and actually call the phone number on there because that is the most difficult thing for these scamsters to change and just validate that this is the company that we're brokering this to. That's just a good, simple double check. And then the last thing is just be real careful about quick pays. The one thing these scamsters want is quick pays and fuel advances. And so we have a very strict policy that we will not advance a carrier anything on a load unless we've done at least 3 to 5 loads with them. And so we got stuck more times getting scammed when we were doing more quick pays. And I think with a more stringent quick pay policy, including fuel advances, is a very important thing to implement within your operations on the broker side.
That's awesome. Okay. We need to break that down in a blog or something so it's just easily accessible.
One other thing too is I would be real careful with dispatch services. Not a lot of people like dispatch services. It's kind of a workaround to being a licensed broker. Everybody has issues with them except themselves. So I'm probably preaching to the choir here with your listeners, but we just got jammed up on another theft that ran through a dispatch service. So I would just be very, very careful with dispatch services. We're seeing that segment trending certainly in the wrong direction. So just from personal experience of something I'm going through right now, you still have to use them some on the broker side, especially as you get larger, but I would just make sure they're well vetted and they are legitimate operations.
Awesome. Okay. And then let's talk about consolidation, because I know this is something you've been thinking about. And we're seeing a lot more of it, even just in the last month or so across the freight industry. So what's your take on why that's increasing?
In terms of consolidation of companies?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the market. I mean, here's the thing. If you don't have customer relationships right now, you're in trouble. I mean, trying to go out and get in with a new customer is as difficult now as I've ever seen it, because the reality is most of the big shippers out there have the relationships that they want. They don't have a bunch of excess capacity. And so it's just difficult to get in with new customers when they don't have that excess capacity, right? When they need other people that they don't have their contracted freight with, and the volume spikes so much, that's when you can get in. And so, and that's really how our growth has been over the last few years. It is, we've added some customers, but it's really been organic growth within the customers that we do have, because companies now, knowing the market, are servicing accounts better, in my opinion. I think everybody's having to step up. And if anybody's on the spot market, you're just in trouble. And those smaller operations are just going down. And, you've got other policies out there like the strict immigration policy by the current presidential administration. We're losing a lot of Hispanic drivers in the U.S., some for good reason, some not so much, but it's certainly a big factor in the labor force. And so I think that just naturally leads to discussions about consolidation. You're having trouble with organic growth. You're seeing people that are in financial stress. And so that certainly leads to opportunities for consolidation. The question is, does your balance sheet support it? And so, it's something we've analyzed and we're looking at, more so probably on the brokerage side than the asset side. But I've also had a lot more people call me about merging or buying or selling recently than I have in a while. And so, the big guys are certainly gobbling up some, but I think you're going to see more and more people kind of consolidate, and you get some economies of scale and some benefit on your P&L, right, of your cost. And so there's, I think, value there. You kind of got to compete to stay in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of competing to stay in the game, you've mentioned using nearshore talent, and I'm just wondering how that's working for you and if you have any advice for other companies that may be exploring that option.
It's been just fabulously successful for us. You could probably tell from my voice, I'm a redneck kid from Amarillo, Texas, right? So I was raised in the Panhandle of Texas. So the proposition of hiring people outside the United States was just mind blowing to me. But I've always been big within the folks that work with us. If you've got an idea, bring it to me. Let's vet it and let's punch the ticket. I mean, I'm perfectly willing to go and try new things. I love trying new things. So I had a guy that worked with me years ago that had started an operation, worked with some folks out of Ukraine. He's like, they're amazing. They do a great job. Obviously, this was before the war. So I was like, no, we can't do that. And finally, I was like, all right, forget it. Let's go. So we just flew over there. We hired 3 of them, and they were phenomenal. I mean, they were great employees, spoke great English. They'd been in the logistics industry before, and they worked out fabulously. And it was kind of right at or into COVID. And so everybody was getting more acclimated into the remote work environment. And so that naturally helps when you're nearshoring staffing. And so that was great. Then we moved forward, started working with the group out of Poland. This was on my freight brokerage side. So we've got about 8 or 10 people helping us over there. Well, on my asset side, we're based out of San Antonio, Texas. And so I need Spanish speaking people. Like, that's just the name of the game down here, because most of my drivers speak Spanish. And so that's not going to work out of Poland or Ukraine. Obviously, Ukraine kind of went away with the war, but I started looking and kind of looked at Mexico. Really wasn't something I was interested in doing due to a lot of different factors. So I ended up just starting an office in Costa Rica. And so I've got about 30 employees down there, and it's beautiful. They don't have a standing army, great geopolitical relationship with the U.S., and high English proficiency due to the nature of their economy, which is tourism driven, which is a lot of Americans and Europeans that speak English. And so 1 out of 3 candidates that we interview over there is bilingual in English and Spanish. They're college educated. They're great people. They work hard. And so it's been fabulously successful for us. And I've actually got some friends doing it with me. I started a company behind this called Buena Vista Solutions. So, we're helping other people do it too. But, I will say at first it seems daunting, but as long as you put in the time and effort, you're capable with the VoIP phone system. Obviously, that's pretty important. You use Teams or some other communication medium within your company. It's really no different than people in the U.S. I mean, I've got a terminal on the southeast side of Amarillo. My brokerage is over by the airport. We're already working with each other across town in the same capacity that we are with somebody in a whole nother country. And so, it's been very successful for us. I would say if you're going to do it with somebody that you feel comfortable with. I know a lot of the large BPOs out there, have minimums and things, but certainly look into it if it's something you're interested in.
Awesome. Yeah, I've always really appreciated, Adam, how generous you are with giving away the stuff that you've learned, and helping other people by just sharing your knowledge. So, okay, last question. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting out, when you were at that bar deciding to start a trucking company, what would that advice be?
Be patient and enjoy the ride. When I started, I'm naturally impatient. I want everything to happen yesterday. And I think that's an important quality as somebody that's building a business, but there are times you just have to be patient and let things develop. And so that would probably be the first thing. And I think even more important than that is I wish I would have enjoyed, probably the first half of this ride, the first 5 or 6 years. It was so intense. I was putting so much pressure on myself, put so much pressure on our team, which probably was of some benefit, but you lose a little bit of enjoyment. And I'm now taking the time to enjoy the things we're doing, being patient and watching things develop. And so that's easy to say in retrospect, where I am now 11, 12 years into this thing, whatever, I think it's 11 years, but just enjoy it if you're out there building something, and be patient, enjoy the people you're doing it with, and just know that, most crises that you run into in a business aren't existential. And so just work through it, develop the process, make sure it doesn't happen again, and move on. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Don't take it too personally. Just deal with it and move on and try to enjoy the ride. I love that. And then for those of you guys out there that are working really, really hard, know that you can put in your years like Adam did, working like crazy, but eventually you'll get to a place where it's more fun. You can relax a little more and you can watch it grow. Yeah, I love that.
So, well, and work with great people. I mean,
Yeah.
strategic partners are everything in this business. And so you've got to find those, and having good banks, make sure you have good accountants, good lawyers, on top of the softwares, just making sure you've got great strategic partners, because those are the people that are going to help you have the foresight to not make mistakes that can become existential. My background as an attorney just naturally helped us, because I could usually identify things that most people couldn't out in front of us. But surround yourself with great strategic partners. First thing I always tell people is go get a good lawyer and a good accountant. That's the first thing you need to do. And then after that, go find a good bank that you like to work with. And then as you get bigger, get 3 or 4 of them that you work with together. And, those are the main things you need. And then obviously, most importantly, is just great people. Hire great people, pay them well, pay yourself less, and that'll pay it forward for you for sure.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. And for anybody out there listening in, thanks for spending some time with Adam and I today. Yeah, and hope you have a great day.
Thanks, Ava.